Welcome to Who Knew. We are fans of the current series of Doctor Who, and here we discuss our likes, dislikes, and insights into the modern regeneration of the show. Subscribe, review, and listen to us on iTunes and Stitcher, or our YouTube channel, youtube.com/WhoKnewPodcast. All our episodes are on WhoKnewPodcast.com. You can leave comments there, or email us at WhoKnewPodcast@gmail.com. We also have an Instagram and Twitter account. Tweet at us at WhoKnewPodcast, and find us on Facebook. Today's episode is the first of the 2008 through 2010 specials entitled The Next Doctor.
Oh, wait. Next Doctor?
That's what I said.
I thought it was the Doctor after next. Well, one of those.
There's always a
A
morning.
future Doctor.
The penultimate.
Is that this coming Doctor or the Doctor after this coming Doctor?
This episode is written by Russell T. Davis, directed by Andy Goddard. It originally aired on the 25th of December 2008 and was watched by 11.71 million viewers. Hi, this is Eugene. Let's introduce ourselves.
Hello, this is Frank.
Hi, this is Auburn.
This here is Josh.
And this is Brian. And I just want to say real quick that we just got finished watching The Next Doctor. And by that, I mean Jodie Whittaker's first episode just aired. And we're all very excited about that. And be sure to check our feed for our reaction episode.
The Doctor arrives in London on Christmas Eve, 1851, and hears a woman calling out for the Doctor. Another man answers the call, and the woman, Rosita, hands him his sonic screwdriver. A cybershade bursts through a door into the alley where they are gathered. This next Doctor lassos the beast, but it pulls him and the Doctor up into an abandoned building and makes its escape.
It looks like a cyber mask on a Gilligan's Island gorilla costume.
It does.
Exactly.
But you know what, though? I also kind of feel it goes along with the silliness of the show sometimes.
Oh, yes. The kids would like it, and it did make a good jump scare at the beginning when it burst out.
If I was a kid...
And it is different. I mean, we've never seen them before.
Yeah. If I was 10, I would have been... I was going to say, I'd be eating that up, but then that felt a little weird to say
But
that.
to say that was, a cyber cat or dog that's been
Yeah.
changed. It's like, well, why wouldn't you go with gorilla or something else that would at least fit the description of a person in a suit?
Yeah.
It just looks bad.
Well, I also think they were trying to mislead us from not thinking
Of
about
course,
the
yeah.
Cybermen.
I do enjoy the opening of this episode.
I like it.
The music is great.
You get it starts off very much with like a pause.
Yeah, it's
Just enjoy. Just soak it in.
because after what we went through with Stolen Earth and Journey's End, it's like, this is kind of cool that the Doctor is just hanging out by himself, enjoying a Christmassy vibe.
And it's filmed really well, and they've got a lot of extras. There's a lot of activity going on. It's really nice.
Location is nice too.
Yeah.
And as a Christmas special, I'm sure that the audience by now is expecting like big destroying London, destroying the world every time. So yeah, it was very nice to have that slowness at the beginning.
Yeah, the opening track to that is a Victorian Christmas, and it totally fits with that feel of what they were going for.
I like that Rosita's the one who saves the day. She grabs the axe and cuts the rope before they go tumbling to their death. It's like, I like her character.
As we go through this episode, we'll be sure to point them out. But there's a lot of callbacks to what we've seen before in these past 4 seasons. And Rosita is a mashup of Rose and Martha, and then she gets the axe. And to me, that reminded me of Sylvia breaking the window to the car when Wilf was inside. With the axe.
Yeah.
How long was it that these 4 episodes spanned?
2008 to 2010.
Christmas.
Wow.
Yeah.
There was no regular
I forgot.
episodes?
Correct.
Crazy.
Because
Why?
Well, but remember though, it's not as long as it sounds. It's Christmas 2008, and then the final special aired January 1st, the next year.
And this was because David Tennant was announced as he was departing the show, as well as Russell T. Davis. So this is how they filled us in before the new regime took over.
Well, so
He
it's also-
didn't really want to do another full series, so this was their compromise
Right,
with the BBC. So one of the episodes is an Easter special. Then there's just Waters
Summer.
and
Well,
Wars.
it was also really only a year if you're talking about
It's
December
only
and
yes,
January.
it really is only a year. I like the writing in this scene because I like how the confusion of the Doctor, the introduction of the next Doctor, Rosita, and the confusion of who she's talking to, and then the next Doctor comes up and says a line where it's very how does he know that word? I think it's almost my favorite scene in the whole episode.
It is.
that
I
just
agree.
that
It's
that
fun.
confusion aspect, and then David Tennant trying to figure out what's going on, and then firmly believing that this guy is a later reincarnation of me. I like it a lot.
And more on that is before we get to the opening sequence with the music, I like how both of them have their sonics out, or one is a real screwdriver.
Yeah, you don't really see it.
And then they both look at each other like, what's that guy doing what I'm doing, type of thing. And I thought that was a great place to put the opening sting right there. Oh, and I also like what he's wearing. It reminds me of really more Paul McGann's Doctor, the Eighth Doctor.
Yeah, same time period.
Because of that very
Edwardian.
ornate, or Edwardian.
I mean, this is Victorian, but similar to
that
Edwardian.
waistcoat.
To me, it was a little more subdued of the Sixth Doctor. Not so clownish, but
All the
so
yellow
it's like,
on red.
Right, but in a nice combination, not the McDonald's combination.
But what he's wearing it reminds me of the Eighth Doctor because of later when he has the bandolier, and then that's when Paul McGann came back and reprised his live-action role as the Eighth Doctor in the Night of the Doctor, and he's got that look with the waistcoat, the bandolier, and the long jacket.
I totally fell for it the first time I saw this episode.
Oh, definitely.
I don't know, it was just like, I was as enamored as the Doctor was by, that's one thing I really liked in this episode, in this section, was how our Doctor was so enamored with this new Doctor, and he got a kick out of him, and then, gradually he started to realize something was a little off, but I got a kick out of how much fun he was having.
And Russell was really playing with us because when this aired, we already knew that David Tennant was leaving. We already knew that these were going to be his final specials. So to call it the next Doctor, people were like, oh, he's the next Doctor. He's going to be the next Doctor. And no, he's not.
I think it being David Tennant's last season, he is the one that sold it to make us believe that this guy could be another Time Lord.
Right.
And that was just great.
I wasn't questioning it at all.
Right. And for us, we always look to the Doctor, well, what do you think about this new character? And because he believed it, because he was kind of in that emotionally vulnerable state already.
Right.
And then, we're expecting to see defense or acceptance, and we just went right along with David Tennant that this guy must be a future Doctor.
Yeah.
The next Doctor, let's call him Jack to differentiate, doesn't recognize the Doctor. Most of his memory is missing since a Cybermen attack 3 weeks prior. All he remembers is that something was taken and something was lost. Rosita reminds him that the funeral is about to take place and they need to go. They tell the Doctor that Reverend Fairchild was a predominant member of society and an advocate for children's charities before he was killed. After the funeral procession passes them on the way to the cemetery, the two Doctors break into his house.
I actually didn't catch that's
Why
they killed him. Because I guess you didn't know what their motivation was for killing him.
Yet.
Well, that wasn't part of the plot that we know about yet. That
yeah.
because him being, a predominant member, an advocate for children's charities was just seemed like a throwaway, so it's not something to really remember.
But we get more information on that at the actual funeral.
Right. So on second watching, which I know you guys have seen it way more than I have, but it would have been like, oh.
That's what's good about Doctor Who.
I know.
Layers.
Backing up a little bit, when Rosita says Doctor Who, I felt it was one of the most organic deliveries of that joke.
Yeah, it wasn't. I'm doing the series title.
Because she's like, "What? You're not the Doctor," and then he's like, "I'm the Doctor. Doctor Who?" And then I just love that.
Yeah.
I love Rosita. I wish we had more of Rosita. It's like at the end, it's like, Doctor, take Rosita with you. She should be the companion.
I did like the memory problems that Dr. Jack was having, because I thought that was done well. And every time we've seen the Doctor regenerate in the new Who, he always is disoriented. He doesn't know what's going on. He always has problems. So you can tie that into the regeneration of him remembering something. But then something happened with the Cybermen, that he's seeing little glimpses of.
But it was weird.
He didn't know what was happening.
It was weird because he didn't seem. It seemed like he was doing things for a while. So there was a part of me that thought, well, he couldn't have regenerated so quickly because he's already ingrained in this life. He wouldn't have had a companion. Well, you know what I'm saying.
Well, he said he was, chasing this beast for a fortnight, so that's 2 weeks. At least we know he's been doing this for 2 weeks.
Yeah, and he just had it was this weird dichotomy of he could have just regenerated, but he seems like he'd been the Doctor for a little while. So that's when it starts to get a little confusing.
Yeah, there's something weird going on with this one.
That's the thing. Russell is writing in weirdness because the first time we see him, he's full on the Doctor. And now we're seeing him, and it's like, oh, okay, he's the Doctor recently regenerated because he's a little off. And Russell is slowly building to there's something weird.
It's funny because usually the companion is our conduit to the stories, but this time it's Tennant's doctor. It's the doctor who is the
Yes.
story.
And there's
That's
even
a great point.
And there's even a line for that because he goes, Jackson goes, "You ask a lot of questions," and he goes, "I'm your companion."
No, that's right. Yeah.
And then he also says, "I seem to tell you everything. Like there's this familiarity with you." And I was like, "That's good,"
yeah.
because normally that's what Rose has done, is always talking and asking questions. And
There's that extra reason for it we learn later.
Yes,
but
yes.
No, but at that point in the
Yes.
show, yes. Yeah.
And so I like that you brought that up because that's what I thought too. It's
Yeah.
like he's now become the companion, but we don't even
It was
question
really
it.
neat.
Yeah.
It was really neat. And again, like with, commend Tennant. He just sold the fun of it.
Yeah.
Like he was having fun with the fact that he was now the companion.
It's almost like he's, oh, this is a special episode.
Yes.
It's 2 doctors. There's precedent for that.
I think, was it at this point that we get to see the sonic screwdriver is Sonic for a
Yeah.
different
No,
reason
when he's
they're breaking
into
in?
the house.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
goes, "It's Sonic,"
And
makes a
he
noise.
taps it on the.
Yeah.
That's a sound. That's Sonic. Yeah. This
And
is that
was
moment.
that was the first big like wink to the
That it's
audience,
not-
right? That
Yeah.
there is something wrong.
And then when
I think a little more than a wink. That was a
Yeah.
whoa.
Well, there's
this is
other
right.
like
Right.
little things, but this is the
This is the first major
Yeah.
bonk bonk on the door.
And then I like when the 10th Doctor uses his sonic screwdriver. He's like, "What's that noise?" It's like, "I'm just whistling."
Yeah.
yeah.
And then by that point, the doctor's figured out, okay, he doesn't believe he's the doctor or something's really weird. So he's in I'm figuring it out mode.
And I know we haven't gotten to that part in the story yet, but the reason the Doctor is the way he is, the reason Dr. Jack thinks he's the Doctor, it's like I couldn't figure it out until the actual reveal. Like I didn't even figure it out right before the reveal. Usually when a
Right.
reveal happens, about a minute before, 2 minutes at the very. But I was like, how did this happen?
Here, there.
so-
Yes, please tell me.
Yeah. And so really, really good writing. And then after the fact, it didn't feel like a MacGuffin. If that's
Right.
it felt like, oh, okay, that makes a lot of sense.
The Cybermen are working with Miss Mercy Hardigan, a matron at a workhouse. They show her Jack and identify him as the Doctor and a threat to their plans. 2 Cybermen are sent to deal with him. Miss Hardigan attends the funeral and orders the Cybermen to kill all in attendance, except for a few who run the workhouses and orphanages. These mourners are converted with cyber ear pods and are now slaves to do her bidding. She orders them to gather the children and bring them to a cavern under the Thames.
I just want to say I think Cyber EarPods is Apple's plan all along.
Yeah, right. I did think when I was watching this the other day, because she's doing this in somewhat secret, and I thought, do they have to blink? If you're gonna put a little, isn't that some technology maybe you want to hide in the 1600s or whatever this was? But at the same time, I also thought it looks super cool, so who cares?
And speaking of super cool, I think it's great that everybody's dressed in black and then she comes in red and it just
Yeah.
pops.
Yes,
It's
that-
amazing.
Yeah, coming
Well,
out of the
that's
white
also-
snow.
Yeah.
That red dress is amazing.
It's like great on the production design, costuming, just
That's
everything.
also a societal
yeah.
thing.
Of- yeah.
Oh well, see
Good-
that's
yeah.
I don't get the reference to what is a woman doing at a funeral. Women went to funerals all the time.
it was because
No.
she was wearing red.
'Cause
That's
she's
the
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
But it's not. It's like because they'd actually call out both. I mean, I never heard in all my studying history that only the men went to the funeral. Not in England.
I don't know.
Maybe for a reverend, maybe for his status.
But because I remember the first time I watched it, I'm like, oh, that dress.
Right, right.
I mean, you really are supposed to go. That's wrong. That's wrong. Run away. Run away.
But it was that drop of blood between the sea of the black and the white and
Yeah.
the snow.
It's just
It
so
was so
stark.
well done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just also the progression going to the funeral of them walking with that. That was such a beautiful visual.
Yeah.
And speaking, Frank, we mentioned about the funeral. This is a reference to Girl in the Fireplace because they say the similar lines to Miss Madame de Pompadour leaving for the last time. They say that also to the recently deceased, and he's in that carriage that carries the coffin. And
Hearse.
it's- yeah, the hearse, a horse-drawn hearse, and it's the same way that Madame de Pompadour left France.
Yeah.
Right.
So I like that they're still, peppering these familiar things from the previous seasons.
This was a really beautiful scene, and watching it with Kelsey, she actually was wondering why we didn't include this in our Christmas list, because I think it was just so beautiful, a lot of the imagery in this episode. I kept arguing that, while it does take place around Christmas, like the story, and I think we said this again in our Christmas special, doesn't focus enough on Christmas. I mean, visually, yeah, this would be one if you were throwing a Christmas party and didn't care about the audio and the story.
Yes.
Just to have pretty pictures on the wall.
I like that
Agreed.
idea.
Yeah.
I never thought about turning the sound down,
Yeah.
but it would look great.
And I think that's why we didn't include it, because of that aspect.
No, and I still agree.
So I liked her cadence when
Heart again?
Heart again.
Heart again.
I just keep thinking of Annie.
Hannigan.
Hannigan.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to get that right. But when she's saying Mr. Cole, Mr. Scoons, Mr. Felch, Mr. Milligan, it sounded like, Mooney, Wormtail, Padfoot, Prongs.
What is that from? Is
That's
that
Harry Potter.
Mm-hmm.
It just something with the cadence, the way she kept saying
The
it.
cadence
over
was
and
really
over.
great. I didn't get the Madfoot reference until you said it. So
Maybe
Madfoot.
that's what it is, because I did feel it felt awkward but purposeful.
Right.
So, but by the time she said it like the third or fourth time, I actually was enjoying it.
Right.
Yeah, I liked it because it also not only was it the cadence, but it also gave her control. She was,
She knew who everyone was.
who everybody was, and I want everybody dead except for you four, and I know who you are, and I have a reason for keeping you alive, and you are specific, and it just works for me.
And that makes me think that that's why they weren't expecting her at the funeral, because she's a single woman and she shouldn't know these men.
Single woman.
Maybe that, yeah.
That might have been it.
I think that's what it is.
Wasn't it inferred
trying
that
to
she was
picture-
also a madam, possibly, or
No,
No, not that kind of madam.
She ran the workhouse.
workhouse,
we were in the workhouse?
not a whorehouse.
Not a whorehouse.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
But
Because if she did, then
It was
they-
probably a single woman, but also too, I think what you were referring to earlier was another brick stacked on her being oppressed because she's a woman to fuel her motivation.
Yes, I get that. That's why they wrote it, but just like,
Yeah.
but now that we've brought up the single woman, I'm thinking if she were dressed in black appropriately and walked up, they'd have said something about her being a single woman coming to a funeral. Thank you. It all makes sense for me now.
You're welcome.
I just want to say, Frank, your reading of the names inspired in me Arya Stark and her list of names. I don't know if you're a Game of Thrones fan, but and I
won't
didn't
get
even
that,
think
but-
about that until just as you were reading it. She had a list of people she wanted to get revenge against and would recite it as
A mantra.
a mantra. Yeah, maybe
Okay.
like halfway
Okay.
between the two.
That one actually fits a little better than the Harry Potter one. I mean, it was after.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah.
But the books had been written, maybe not that.
But the idea that it's a list of those are the people she knows
Right.
and wants
it's
to
become
revenge. Right.
a
mantra.
mantra.
It also sort
yeah,
of feels a little
comforting.
Christmassy, a little Dickensy.
It does.
That's the
You know.
Harry Potter part.
Right.
So the writer combined those two ideas into this magical mantra of revenge.
So well done, Russell.
Magical mantra of revenge.
Ooh, I like
that.
that.
Yeah.
That's my autobiography.
At the Reverend's home, Jack tells the doctor that his investigation started with the death of Jackson Lake, whose body was never found. It began a series of murders, the latest being Reverend Fairchild, along with reports of missing children. As they search the house, they find metal tubes that the doctor recognizes as info stamps, cylinders containing records about a particular subject. He activates one, and it is a history of London. Jack says that he was holding one of these cylinders the night he regenerated. A couple of Cybermen show up and chase the two doctors. The doctor tells them that he is the real doctor, but they continue after Jack, who activates another info tube and uses it to overload the Cybermen's brains, blowing up their heads.
Kind of like this scene. That scene where the 10th Doctor, opens the door and the Cyberman just closes it right away. It reminded me of when we did the Terror of the Autons and the Doctor finds the Auton
Yes.
in the safe. It just recently doing that, it just called out
Yeah.
to itself.
And they end up explaining why the Cybermen also think he's the doctor.
That's correct, yeah.
I can't quite recall.
They don't have all their memories. That's why they have the info stamps.
All right.
And he says that they stole the info stamps probably from Daleks in the Void.
That's also another thing later. Yeah.
Eugene, is there any behind the scenes thing about some of the stunts earlier with when the doctors are being dragged by
Yes.
the?
What do you want to know about him?
Oh, I'm just curious as to like the effect. Any fun anecdotes
Okay, so they
This is when the two
beginning.
doctors are being
Being
dragged
dragged.
by the
Cybershade.
Cybershade.
on their butt?
Okay, so let me rewind and I'll get to that because they go up the building, right? Because Jackson Lake lassos them. They had a lassotier or whatever training him how to lasso properly. So he does that, and then they get pulled up by harnesses on their rigs to go up the side of the building, and then they had to do a second take. So they were already done for that day, and then they go, no, we need you back in the harnesses, and then they were already sore from doing that for a couple hours. So when they got into them again, it was more painful because the second time. And then when they get dragged into that empty building, they were being pulled by a quad bike, an ATV, and they were just on what appeared like slimmed down skateboards.
Oh, okay.
And then they're just being
So they
pulled
were
with them.
on something. They weren't
Yes.
actually being sliding
Yeah.
on the floor.
Yeah. And Russell goes, this is why I never visit sets, because I write this, and then when people have to create it, I'm like, ooh, sorry.
Every time I see that, I think, how could those two people stand up and walk around? They're just, you wouldn't be able to walk after that.
Yeah.
You would
This
hurt.
all the running, he's used to it.
Friction.
Well, also their pants would have been torn up.
I like the reference to the fob watch.
Yes.
You know, the doctor
Yes.
is going. And it just,
Now that's MacGuffin.
It brings you back not only to the master, but also human nature when he put his own consciousness in the watch. So it was just
Right.
I just love that like, he opens it up and he's just like, oh, never mind.
No, it's the music swells. It's like there's a big reveal. Nope, guess not.
But it wasn't. It was a MacGuffin, but it wasn't. But it was also purposeful.
Yes.
So it would have made total sense.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah, but that would be a good MacGuffin,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Yes.
And I really did like the Dutch angles when he was going through and trying to remember having the info stamp before when he regenerated. And I thought it worked to disorient you a bit. I thought that was a nice use of the camera angle.
Then when they fight off the Cybermen and they go up the staircase, it was improv that Tennant grabs the umbrella, and that reminded me of the Sycorax battle in Christmas Invasion, where he's using a sword to fend off the villain.
This is where Jackson,
The next Doctor.
This is where the next doctor asks for help, and the doctor says, like, I'll always be there when someone says help me. It made me think, didn't Rose say that to him to get him out of bed when he first regenerated?
She just said, whisper.
Help me.
Yeah.
When the Christmas trees were attacking, in the Christmas invasion. And I thought that was a nice kind of bookend to this. The doctor, when the next doctor is going through all this and is in pain, takes out the
Stethoscope.
takes out the stethoscope.
The thing the doctor uses. Pardon the pun.
No, let's all just sit and stare.
Stethoscope. The doctor takes out the stethoscope. I just realized he's not doing it to really check on him. He's doing it to see if he has two hearts.
Right.
It was like this last time. It's like, oh, because I never really paid attention to it, but he's like confirming this is somebody who needs his help. This is a human who somehow thinks he's a doctor. I got to figure this out. He's had all the clues. He had the sonic, regular screwdriver and all this. But that was all still a mystery. Now he knows.
Is this a doctor who lost part of his memory? Is this a future me who has lost part of my memory? Or is it what you just said?
When
or is
I
it some
re-
other weird thing? But now he just sees him as a victim,
Right.
Human, and needs his help.
And what I love is, for the first time with the stethoscope, the audience does not hear the hearts beating.
Oh.
So we don't know the
That's
answer.
true. Usually
They
when
don't
you-
tell the
Right.
audience the
Yeah.
answer when he's doing that. And it's just the look in David Tennant's face.
Right.
So we still are going, what's going on? So David Tennant, again, now knows more than even the audience.
Originally, Russell was going to tell us that he only has one heartbeat in that scene, and he said, let's keep the mystery going a little
Oh,
longer.
I'm glad they did that.
Yeah, because it
Yes.
works.
It's kind of early to blow the whole secret. Like,
Yeah, I mean, we know
Yeah.
something. I mean,
Yeah.
at this point, you're going, oh, that's not the doctor.
Yeah,
but
but-
what is he? Now we've moved on to
Because
what
he
is
knows
he.
too much.
Yeah.
He's
to not-
too David. He's too
Yeah.
10th Doctor, Alonzi, and you know.
Yeah. That's a good point too. That's why he.
knowing what that about a sonic screwdriver, and you don't feel like he's lying
'Cause another
he's not
doctor-
pretending.
Right.
Sorry,
Another
go
doctor
ahead.
wouldn't do
Wouldn't-
Alonzi.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that. But that's what I love about this episode is you get a piece of information and then you're like, wait, what? It keeps you guessing until the very end. The only thing I knew ahead of time was that last bit of that thing he couldn't remember, which we'll talk about. And I was like, oh, it's going to be this.
Right.
I kind of wish the mystery went a little longer, personally.
The mystery of who he was?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, but how it happened to him lasted a lot longer, which is what I liked about it. Okay, now I know this, but I have no idea how it happened.
Yeah, I appreciated that the story kept unfolding even
Yeah.
when the high point of it
Yeah.
was revealed.
The two doctors and Rosita return to the stables where Jack has been living. They have kept Jackson's luggage there, where the doctor finds more info stamps. He wants to use the TARDIS to analyze the info stamps, but Jack's TARDIS turns out to be a hot air balloon. Tethered aerial release developed in style.
You know, Russell went, nailed it. Late at probably 4 o'clock in the morning after like 50 cigarettes.
Yeah, he said he worked hard on figuring that one out. The doctor tells them he can explain what happened and why Jack's memory was affected. The Cybermen slipped through time, escaping the Battle of Canary Wharf, and found Jackson Lake, attacking him and killing his wife. Jackson used an info stamp about the doctor to overload the Cybermen, but it also affected his mind, making him forget who he was and assume the mantle of the Doctor. The Doctor shows Jack the pocket watch he has been wearing that bears the initials JL. Jackson now remembers who he is and that the Cybermen killed his wife.
Yeah, really, that unfolded really nicely.
And that shot where we see all incarnations of the Doctor, that's here, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So good.
So good.
So
And
good.
I like how it's also mixed in with like I guess what you'd call, I don't want to say not daguerreotypes, but you know, like old-fashioned illustration history.
Well, they did that in sepia tone because the first two Doctors are only in black and white, so it wouldn't match going from black and white to color. So that's why they did it all in sepia tone. And I think that was Julie's idea. Julie,
It's also
Garner?
consistent with the
Yeah.
history of London, but they showed earlier that was all sepia toned as well.
yeah, it works.
And the time
then-
frame of the
the
episode,
series,
it
yeah.
just sort of had that feeling
Right.
of the nostalgia that we'd have with the sepia tone.
Yeah. The info stamps begin beeping, meaning the Cybermen are on the move. The Doctor and Rosita rush out and see the converted mourners leading the children through London to a large gate opening to the sewers. They try to sneak in, but are caught by Miss Hartigan. The Cybermen realize he is the Doctor, and Hartigan says that the children are their workforce to bring around the conquest of the Cybermen. They are able to escape with Jackson showing up and using another info stamp while Rosita punches Hartigan. Hartigan moves up the timetable to the rise of the Cyber King. I just, for me, this is the point where it's like it's getting awfully exposition in these last two things. It's like
Exposition in
yeah.
And that's why I feel like the mystery of who Jackson Lake is should have been carried a little longer.
Yeah, it's like we got, okay, who's Jackson? We get that explained. But we get a little bit of who Jackson is. Well, we get who Jackson is. We get a little bit of who the Doctor is. And then we move into who Hartigan is. It's just talky.
This is when she's really evil.
Yeah,
I mean, she
she's
calls
twirling the
Rosita,
mustache.
Yeah,
Yeah.
basically a prostitute. It was like, that's not what he's paying you for to talk. I thought you were more for women's rights and being so subjected in a man's world and how brilliant you are.
No,
and
she's
being
for her rights.
pushed aside because you're a woman, and you do that to other women.
We should probably doesn't consider her a woman because of what she does.
Oh,
So,
well,
though
yeah,
I can't
and her
condone
race.
what Rosita did.
her race.
Yay. That was what the doctor said. Well, I can't condone that yet.
That's right.
Right, yeah.
I did like Jackson coming in wearing the info stamps as
Bandolier.
As a bandolier.
Yeah.
bandolier with all the ammunition.
Yeah.
What
He's
is it?
channeling his inner war doctor. Spoilers!
Yeah, that's very much that action figure I have of the 8th Doctor in
Yeah.
between the movie and the 9th Doctor. And so that's why I think he looks a lot like the 8th Doctor.
It's interesting to think of those info stamps as weapons when they're supposed to be educational tools, which has kind of been David Tennant's weapon the whole series. Yeah.
Information is power.
Yeah.
Or knowledge is power.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Because I actually, this is also the part where I'm thinking, boy, we're using those info stamps a lot.
Yeah.
It's just, woo, thank goodness we have so many.
And it's because Daleks don't have fingers, so they can't break the seal. Because they were the Daleks info stamps. It's like, why do they make them so easy to use as a weapon?
These were badly designed.
These are Dalek proof. Jackson remembers encountering the Cybermen in his basement, which had a tunnel to where the children were taken. They follow the tunnel to see a huge steampunk engine. Having delivered the children, Miss Hartigan kills the converted mourners and puts the children to work stoking fires to power the engine. The cyber leader takes Miss Hartigan and binds her to the throne, making her their unwilling cyber king. She has been partially converted but still retains her mind, relishing the information she has obtained. She takes control of the machine rather than the machine taking control of her. The cyber leader deems this a system failure and goes to remove Hartigan, but she sends a beam of energy and kills him. The doctor notices something has altered the machine, which is almost at full power. When it is full, the Cybermen will delete the unneeded workforce.
So she uses children for her workforce. Well, I got the impression she was doing it longer. Like there were already children there, and then they just gathered up the rest of the children.
For the final
For the
push.
final push.
Okay.
But
I'll
if you
give you
can
that.
control adults with AirPods, why not get adults to be your workforce?
Well, the
You need
intricate.
a lot more pods to do it.
Oh,
These
children.
Cybermen
the kids
are
are
weak.
just do it, and they know
Right,
that they'll
right.
be beaten if not. I mean, they're already
Okay,
trained
show
for
me
that.
on that.
I was gonna say the circuitry needs intricate, delicate hands.
Oh,
It's
right. Like the ink and paint girls at Disney.
And she's trying, and she said that we're moving up the timetable also. So she's getting,
Neat.
she's trying to get everything ready for the
Yeah.
morning. But then I was like, no, we got to do this now. So she's even
Right.
pushing the kids further.
And there were already a group of basically indentured servants ready to go.
And she needed to get.
So instead of half an hour, they were really supposed to have like 12 hours.
Right.
It still just gets me where it's
No,
like,
it was like
Yeah.
this is the,
the plot is the whole plot so far is get these children to do something. And
But
it
most of the-
literally was like 30 seconds of screen
but
time.
most of the stuff is already done. The building of it
Yeah.
was already
Yeah,
done.
yeah,
yeah, they're just
It's like,
starting the
now we
engine.
need the workforce, and I think that's why she got rid of the Reverend. It's like now I can control these other four. She couldn't either
Right,
control them
so
or
she
do
was probably
something.
having them build from the day that he died.
No, she'd been doing it longer than that.
Okay, she'd been doing it longer than that.
Yes, because well, remember she says at the funeral, I killed Reverend Fairchild so that there would be an occasion for all of you to be in one place.
Ah, right.
So Fairchild died to provide the funeral for her to
she
get
could get the
access to
rest
all
of the
her
kids.
revenge and the four guys who controlled the kids.
And then the other thing was she didn't see that coming. Like that was the other thing I saw coming from the very beginning of the scene, that they get the Cyber King, the Cyber King, the Cyber King. It's like, you don't think you're gonna be the Cyber King, lady?
She doesn't.
No.
No, I know.
But I don't think so. Are you saying you as an audience member were going, lady, they're going to grab you?
Yeah.
No, I thought the Cyber King would be the
Well,
Cyber Leader.
Yeah, I agree.
would assume.
The guy that she was talking to, whose brain you
With
saw.
the black.
I like that
face with
Cyber
the-
Leader.
I did.
Yeah, I do like that side.
It's really great.
I didn't think that it was going to be her before that scene, but once that scene started,
Okay, I'll give you that.
and the way that they were talking, I figured it out.
But now that the machine, the Cyber King, has been built, she had planned to get all the kids so they could stoke the fire and run the power. So it was just to up the power.
Yeah.
That's all they wanted the kids for.
Yeah.
Not to actually create the actual machine.
I get it.
Oh, really?
they
I thought
just
they were
needed-
still building.
To do all that
Well,
stuff.
the wrapping things up.
Yeah.
Oh, because all they were doing was
Stoking
hauling.
the fire
Yeah.
and
For
getting
the
everything
starter
to-
engine.
Right,
Right.
exactly. They were the key.
Throw them in the fire. Kids burn pretty well. I've been told.
Says the little woman living in a gingerbread house.
right.
Brian, do you recognize the location that they are doing this scene in?
No.
It is the remade Torchwood hub. It's redressed.
No way.
Oh.
Really?
That's okay.
So torch wood stoke the fire.
Children in need. Or of Earth.
There you go.
Had Children of Earth aired yet?
Right now, they had just finished wrapping on episode 1.
Okay. Because I love the Torchwood Hub set so much. There's a part of me going, they blew it up and made it this.
That's probably why they said, let's use this, we're going to blow it up.
The episode's losing me at this point, I gotta be honest. The doctor gets the kids to run while Rosita and Jackson use the info stamps to overload some of the Cybermen. The doctor sends Rosita to get the children to safety. Jackson sees one of the children and recognizes him. It is his son, whom the Cybermen took, and is now trapped on an upper level of the machine. The doctor saves the boy, and they escape through the tunnel. Hardigan raises the Cyber King, a huge robot that is also a spaceship that houses a cyber factory in its chest. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the thing I remember that I saw coming, that it was this kid that was still left behind.
This is also the image that persists in my mind of why I don't like this.
With the little boy in the
special.
ledge?
No, the Cyber King over London town or whatever.
Oh, the whole rest of the episode was extremely inventive and thought-provoking and interesting, and then this part just fell into a very cliched trope.
Well, they steal from the X-Men as the Sentinels.
But I know the big giant robot looked a little cartoony, but I did think the animation was good. I don't think it only looked fake in its believability that it could happen.
I agree with you as a believability. It looked good for what it was and what they're doing, but the idea to make it a large robot, I think, really threw me off.
Yeah, and that to be a factory and a spaceship
Yeah.
and a walking robot.
Yeah.
I just don't like that combination.
A moving factory, which
Yeah.
would then be a spaceship, I think is fine, but,
But-
just the look of it being the robot.
Yes.
Well, I mean,
kinda
the thing
that
is
was too much.
you needed to give her Miss
Hardigan.
Hardigan.
Oh.
Miss Hannigan.
That's Miss Hannigan.
You wanted to give they had to give Miss Hardigan the body and the power of that. They need to turn her into a robot, and then we also needed for her to still be human. So they had to combine all these things into one thing. And I don't know, I kind of feel like the silliness of some of Doctor Who, the way Doctor Who is, gives them the freedom to do things like this easily. Because, I don't know what the time frame was, but it's probably, they have 10 minutes left, and they have to do everything that you just listed off all at once. I don't disagree with you, because that is sometimes the thing that pulls me out, because like I was saying, that it did feel like a very inventive episode, and then this happened, but...
They should have made it a giant Christmas tree with a star on top.
Now that I would buy. Because it's like a rocket shape.
I did like that the Doctor runs in as a companion to get all the kids out, as Rosita and Jackson are firing and killing all those Cybermen. And then the Doctor taking over and assigning Rosita the responsibility to continue and get all the kids out, which also gets her out. And he wanted Jackson to go with, but Jackson then remembers his son's involved.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, even with the silliness of the giant robot, there's a lot in this episode I really, really like.
The Doctor runs back to the stable and gathers equipment and uses the air balloon TARDIS to reach the head of the robot. He offers Hartigan the chance to relocate the Cybermen to another world, or he will stop her. She of course refuses, so he uses a group of info stamps to free her mind completely by breaking the cyber connection to show her what she has become. She can't bear what has happened and screams, sending electricity to the Cybermen, killing them and herself. The Cyber King robot begins to fall, but the Doctor opens a time vortex to transport it away.
Convenient.
Yeah, this part is just way too convenient for me too. I think this is part of why I don't seek this episode out.
There's a lot of quick lines of dialogue to explain plot holes.
But they don't work right, because he said he broke the cyber connection, but then why did her scream activate the electricity to kill all the Cybermen?
I think
She doesn't have the connection.
I don't think she's activating the electricity. I think it's happening at the same time. I don't see it as she
There's
starts
a feedback
screaming.
of the broken connection.
Yes.
But the
Yeah.
way it's filmed and presented to us makes me think of what Frank said.
I mean, if you really want to question it, why does her dress disintegrate when she blows up like a balloon?
Yeah, that was sad to see her disintegrate.
But what gets me though is he grabs the interdimensional thing from Jackson's cellar. The only reason for it to exist plot-wise is for him to grab it and run out and say, I have to give them a chance. I'm going to use this to send them to another planet, which is literally just a reason for him to be able to get rid of a giant robot carcass in the middle of Victorian London. They reached that point and said, now we have to figure out how to get rid of the robot.
But I think, well, if that's the case, I think the choice works because it goes in with his character of I have to give them a chance.
It does, but when you're watching the episode for the first time, I defy you to remember that he picked up a device
You just
to
remember
send
that,
an interdimensional device.
But I did like that they tied that device into how the Cybermen got there in the first place.
He could have found it earlier or whatever. He went, oh, this must be how they got here.
But
So-
Well, they did.
But the wrapping up of it was he took something, when I first saw it, he took an umbrella because he just pulls this long pole out and didn't know what that was until then he uses it more as a gun.
By that time, I've forgotten that he's got another device.
yeah, there's too many
Right.
things going on at
There's
once.
too much going on, and
That's
it's too
probably-
quick.
And your brain is also computing like, is he the Doctor? Is he not the Doctor? There's just a lot to be thinking about for all these things to happen.
I just enjoy the first half of this much more than the second half because
agree.
it's all about character stuff, it's about mystery, it's about learning, and then at the end you just get like 5 minutes worth of stuff.
Monsters fighting.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, what happened to this well-paced stuff before? So that's why I don't really seek this out.
I did like that she realized and started saying, well, why are my people not rejoicing? And I think that was kind of a foreshadowing of her seeing something's wrong. She's not doing the right thing. Because I saw her more, since we were in a Christmas episode, Ebenezer Scrooge came to mind, where he didn't start off being evil. He didn't start off mean. So I think she didn't start off this way. She just got so evil and mean because she has such a strong, brilliant mind that she was able to take over the Cyber King. So that shows a lot of her. And I thought she did pretty well in changing where she did not look evil at the end when she was realizing, oh my gosh, what have I done?
Remember, her eyes changed back too. So you suddenly got her eyes emoting.
Right. But also her eyes were like, normal when she was saying, you didn't kill me, and she was still evil. But then you just But then when he's talking to her, you see even on her whole face just a softness, an openness, that just went along with the eyes.
it was good acting.
Which was great.
Who is this actress? Is she someone in particular?
Miss Hartigan is played by Dervla Kirwan. and she was in Casanova as Casanova's mother, so she had worked with David Tennant and Russell Davis previously.
Yeah, I think it's sad that her demise was after she was kind of opened back up. So she, it's like she knew more what was happening to her.
Yeah.
But then we never really got the backstory, right, of why she wanted vengeance from these guys.
Just they treated her like dirt.
And so her character wasn't that deep, so it's too bad because we could have known a little bit more about her. Maybe I did care, but
She was a woman in a man's world and not given the opportunities and seeing how brilliant she was. Mm-hmm. And she had to come to that way of being evil and killing to get to where she could actually have some power and say in her own life.
I mean, the doctor says she's the smartest brain on the planet. I think they conveyed enough of, we all know what it's like to see a story of an oppressed woman.
I just think because we got so much personality with Jackson and the doctor early, and we didn't really get to see her story during that time. Like, we came in and she's already working with the Cybermen and evil, and I don't know how they would rewrite it, but maybe we could have lessened some of that exposition from her in the back half because we'd already seen a scene of her doing something instead of telling us, showing us how she was so smart, and one of these guys didn't listen to her or did something really
specific.
bad to her. Yes.
Yeah,
they
that's a
could
good
have
idea.
showed us her kind of the microcosm of
Her
her
revenge.
story rather than, this vague, you were all mean to me, because yes, we know that women were mistreated and are still mistreated, but
Maybe they were trying to avoid any sort of sympathy towards her.
maybe. Yeah.
But she was great as an evil villain.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's what makes me think this would have been better for me, is that if she was through and through just the bad guy of the episode, because when she eventually buys it, I don't care because she's the bad guy. Am I supposed to feel something when she dies?
It was because you realize she's now opened up and realizes what's going on, and that's
Right.
sad.
No,
But
I
it's
know,
like,
but
too
it's-
little,
too late.
But it's not enough. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
but it doesn't make it such a yay. We triumphed over the evil. It was that.
yeah.
Oh, so sorry that you realize this now, and that now's the time you're gone.
But then that makes me think if she didn't have that role and she was just a bad guy, that would have been better as a complete story.
right.
Also, she's human, and I don't think we've had a lot of the Doctor destroying a human.
Yeah, they've all
have
been
we?
aliens, like
Yeah,
the
her-
Sycorax, the
And I know at the
Rachnos.
time she's Cyberman.
Yeah, but her motivation
yeah.
was all started. It was because of who she was as the person she was, the human she was, that spurned this whole thing to begin with, and how she overcame the technology herself. So her being the villain had nothing to do with the technology.
I just felt like most of the work was done on the A story and not the B
absolutely,
story.
yeah.
And then to have them together, combined,
Yeah.
it just shows how much the B story is lacking.
It's an uneven episode, mostly because the A story is so good. Mm-hmm. Oh well.
Jackson proclaims to all who have witnessed what has happened that the Doctor saved their lives. An uproar of applause reaches the Doctor. Once the balloon comes back down, the Doctor shows Jackson the real TARDIS. Jackson recalls that the Doctor has had so many companions and asks why he is not traveling with anyone now. The Doctor says it breaks his heart when they eventually leave. At Jackson's urging, the Doctor reluctantly joins Rosita, Jackson, and his son Frederick for Christmas dinner in memories of those who have passed.
See, now that I like.
And the other guy who took care of the TARDIS.
Jed.
Right. Yeah, that guy I like that guy.
Good old Jed.
See, this I like. It makes sense why he's going to go and have dinner with this guy.
It's also a good full circle.
Yeah.
Of all the way back to Eccleston's Doctor, I don't do dinner.
Yeah, I don't-
Right.
yeah.
Isn't it snowing at the end as well?
Yeah.
And that shot of them, the TARDIS right there, and then the lights on the town square, and then them walking through with their coats. It looks great.
The little boy is totally Tiny Tim. I mean, it's all
Right.
it's all evoking
Christmas carols.
Dickens, every sort of thing.
And in the Christmas Invasion is the first time he actually stayed with a family on Earth for Christmas with Rose
Yeah.
and Jackie. So wraps that whole thing up with him doing it again.
Did anybody catch the name of the inn where they were going to have dinner?
Traveler's Halt.
The Traveler's Halt.
Because he stops traveling, he has dinner.
Oh,
They're all wearing halter
I love
tops.
that.
They're all wearing halter tops.
the first Hooters. Is that
Right,
what
it's
we
the first two.
A Victorian Hooters.
That's all Rosita's friends.
Where should we go for Christmas dinner? Let's go to the Hooters.
I don't know what that was.
I did kind of like that the Doctor got accolades,
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of like that too.
But then I thought it was funny. Hey, we're going to be talking about this for years. And the doctor, yeah, funny thing about that. So why don't we know about this?
There will be an answer why no one talks about a giant robot in the middle of Victorian London.
I did like Jackson's reaction to the TARDIS. He doesn't say it's bigger on the inside. Just this.
Yeah, he just can't comprehend it.
Ridiculous? Or
Yeah.
Wonderful ridiculousness.
Yeah. And then he just leaves. He's like, nope, can't handle it.
Still loving it when he leaves. It's like, I've had enough. I can't handle any more. But it was wonderful.
Speaking of Jackson Lake, he is played by David Morrissey, who we've seen previously in America on The Walking Dead. And he was also Colonel Brandon in Sense and Sensibility.
This was before his Walking Dead season, yeah?
Yeah.
What had he been known for in Britain?
More British stuff. I looked it up. I didn't really
Was he a
know.
big star?
I think he was a TV-ish
He's
star.
a working actor.
So he
for
was
sure.
someone everyone kind of knew.
Familiar
back there.
face.
Back there, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I
not,
mean.
Not here.
Yeah, because when Walking Dead came out, I was like, who is this guy? Why did they give him such a big part?
Mm-hmm.
And then, come to find out he was a well-known British actor.
This is also the first Christmas special to take place in the past. All of the other ones have taken place on modern day. The other things that are referencing previous episodes is that the Doctor specifically mentions Blink and saying, is this a case of the Weeping Angels and Sally Sparrow and that business?
Right.
And then when they explain Jackson Lake's fugue state, that reminded me of Agatha Christie and the Unicorn and the Wasp. And then Rosita says something about midnight Christmas Day, and that just reminded me of midnight just because of the word. So the next Doctor, who is this episode good for? Or more specifically, this episode is good for who? A new viewer, a casual viewer, a fan of the show, or a diehard?
I'll go first. I think this is good for... I was going to say a new viewer. I do say that a lot, though. But now that I'm thinking about it, all the fun of him thinking he's the next Doctor would be totally confusing. It needs to be at least a casual. I think a casual fan. That is all.
I will agree with Josh. Casual as well. It is fun. Like the whole stuff with the Doctor and Jackson is really cool. But like you said, like not for a new person, but anyone who has like a little bit of knowledge of Doctor Who and
Yeah.
regeneration, I think would really enjoy it.
There's just too much that goes into you needing to know. That you can enjoy the plot, but the fun of the episode is all referential.
And I think a casual viewer could even stop watching before the giant robot and still have all the fun.
You beat me to it, because that's what I was thinking. I'm torn between casual and fan. And it's like, first half, casual, but the second half, I think you have to be a fan. So I'm going to say fan.
I'm straddling the fence between new and casual. And I'll go with new, just to be different. I don't know if I would have done that if I would have gone first. But I'm thinking the explanation of that the Doctor regenerates into somebody who doesn't know, and then that is explained, and you see how the Doctor wants to help, gives you that information if
Yeah.
you're new to it. So that so I think that's a good introduction to it. I think the episode is good for everyone because it's a standalone episode. So I don't know if it'd be the first one I showed to a new
Well, that's
viewer,
why.
but I think it would go in that category.
That's why I was thinking new, but there's so much crosstalk and dialogue that would just be lost. I was like, what is he even talking about? But as the basis for the episode, like you're saying, yes, I think it is enjoyable for a new person. But
I
get
agree
what-
with you a lot on that. That's why I was thinking
Yeah.
of the casual, but it doesn't really pertain to anything that's come before or after.
Right.
It is very much a standalone. So coming into the show, it's a long show. It's been
Yeah.
on over 50 years.
Right. And it
So
gives
you
you-
know things are going on before it and after it. So to me, it shows you what the Doctor does. He does regenerate. He doesn't know who that's going to be or what it's going to look like. He does have a companion, having Rosita. So you kind of come and get the idea of, Jackson, Doctor, and Rosita as being the Doctor and companion.
it gives you a good
But it gives
taste.
you that extra layer of going, no, this is the real Doctor. So
And I do think the things that would confuse a new viewer, the important things, get explained eventually.
Yes.
I don't know what Davis's like of the name Latimer
Yes.
is or where it comes from.
Yeah.
But he uses that and it just appears in Doctor Who. Maybe because I don't know anybody named Latimer. Maybe it is
When does
more
he
of a
use it here? I
Smith,
don't recall.
in Britain.
In Human Nature, the kid with the
So-
psychic power, Tim Latimer.
Here, Jackson Lake lives at 15 Latimer Street.
Oh, okay.
So he comes up with that name there. Later on, even in the Snowmen, it's used because that's Captain Latimer, who Clara works for.
Oh,
There's-
that's right.
But-
the third Doctor.
But that's not.
But that's
Russell.
Moffat.
I know, which is like, is it? So maybe think, is it just him or is it
Is a member of the crew named Latimer?
Yeah, there's got to be
somebody
a guy
that they know?
named Latimer.
But then I'm going
Head
back,
of catering.
and even in the Third Doctor, Inferno, there was Private Latimer. So that name just seems to keep creeping up through time. So somebody's going through time
That's
and
the
putting
new
this up.
Bad Wolf, maybe. We'll find out later.
And then in Broadchurch, which again David Tennant was in,
And?
Latimer is
And?
and the new Doctor,
Jodie Whittaker.
is a Latimer.
That's her last name in the Broadchurch show.
Oh.
And it could be nothing. It's just I keep hearing that name, and maybe because I haven't heard it
Maybe
outside of
it's
who,
like
it just.
I was gonna say maybe it's like the Smith of Britain, but the Smith is the Smith of Britain. Maybe
Smythe.
it's, yeah, that's right. Sorry. Maybe it's something like that.
It's just that it showed up again, and for me, it stuck out.
It was the third uncredited creator. With Verity Lambert and Sidney Newman.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
It's probably like, the caterer.
It was Gus Latimer, the unsung hero of Doctor Who.
I think this episode to me feels like it's 5 hours long. Every time I watch this episode, I get hooked in the beginning going, this is a lot of fun. And then it drags and drags and drags and drags and drags. It's just one of those episodes that feels so long. And I think I'm just getting so disappointed by the end. And too much happens at the end. I don't like to me, it's like the dimensional thing is only in the show to get rid of a giant robot from Victorian London. And I get that, but I don't think they earned it. I don't like the kids. It still bugs me. It's like, we need you for half an hour. I mean, it's like, God, that's just a silly plot to build. And that kid, Jackson's son, it's like, he bugs me.
Please, sir.
He has no lines.
Get off my TV.
For me, I think I'm going to put it in a fan category because I want people that are watching this to understand, like, why is Rosita and Jackson Lake, like, why are they funny? Why is that a thing? And then all these other references. And then when you see the montage or the info stamp of all the Doctor's incarnations, a casual viewer is not going to know what that is.
Right.
So
That's a good point.
So that thing is definitely for a fan. And also all these other references for previous episodes, like the Blink reference, that's right in the plot or dialogue. Who's going to understand that if they haven't seen season 3?
But they get that it's past experience.
But I'm saying that is put in there for somebody who's watched all the episodes. It's not that you can't understand what's going on, but that is specifically something like kind of rewarding the fan who's watched all the episodes up to this point. And then the other things that I do like are the music. I found myself just really listening to the different
it's very
tracks.
swashbuckling and
Yeah, for me, the other thing that I really like about this is David Morrissey and David Tennant together on screen. That's what really draws me into this story. And then I guess like Brian, it just loses me halfway with this other B story that gets thrown in. Again, like the way that Jackson Lake is dressed, it just evokes all the other Doctors, and that's something for a fan. And on the DVD, the David Tennant specials, the disc with this particular special, it has the 2008 Proms, so that's always great watching. It's the music from the show that's performed live by the orchestra in the Royal Albert Hall. I think that's the only time I've opened and popped in that disc besides for the podcast is to watch the Proms as opposed to the episode.
What are you talking about?
It says extra.
And it's a concert?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Why aren't they
People's
telling
response of musical serenades. That's what I was thinking. I go, I can't say that.
Oh, you
should
should
leave it in there.
have. Something
don't
I
wanna
would
do
have
that.
said.
He's still recording.
Yeah.
So that wraps up The Next Doctor. Thanks for listening. We will see you next time when the future becomes the present.
You've just listened to an episode of Who Knew?
Our wonderful theme music is by Michael Grady.
Find him on Facebook at The Universe Explodes.
All our episodes are engineered by Allburn.
You can also find this show in several places.
Follow us on Twitter at Who Knew Podcast.
Subscribe, review, and listen to us on iTunes and Stitcher.
Or our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Who Knew Podcast.
Comment on our Facebook page.
Please leave comments, reviews, and click like to help support Who Knew Podcast.
Also listen to us on your Amazon Echo by enabling a podcast skill.
All of our episodes are on whoknewpodcast.com.
This podcast is inspired by Doctor Who.
The longest running sci-fi show in history.
And especially the revival spearheaded by Russell T. Davis.
Thanks to Russell,
Sidney Newman,
Verity Lambert,
Ron Grainer,
And all those involved in the adventures of our favorite Time Lord.
Your work continues to inspire and entertain.
I like not knowing things because usually I know everything.
Must be so difficult to be you.
It is.
It's not easy being me.
Yeah. All right. I like that chair. I was looking at it.
Oh, thanks.
Oh wow! Did you custom make those or did
No, they just came out this week.
Oh
Should
wow!
have lied. and
Where?
said kids made
Vans.
it for you.
Oh really?
Kids did make them for me.
Yeah
See?
right.
Up the chain.
This is relevant to the show.
So
Sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
Somebody's using their brain.
Yeah.
It's
Sometimes.
exposed like the Cyberlater.
Yeah.
And it's on.
There we go.
Cool. Thank you.
The fires have been stoked.
The sun will then move out.
And again, it's one of those when I came up on our list, where this is what we're gonna watch. Well, this one, and then I'm watching. I'm like, oh, this is actually really good. I would say most of the episodes are better than I remember them.
Right. Because sometimes when you remember, you only remember the bad sections of
yeah.
it that so overpower the memory of the person who
I
watched
think
it.
that's what happens. And then when you are an avid watcher and you watch them more often, then you start to remember the really cool things.
And you always get to see their personalities and their characters in
Yes.
these situations that you might not remember as well as
Right.
some of the ones that you do visit often.
I was a big enough fan to do this podcast when we started, but doing the podcast has made me even a bigger fan.
Good.
oh,
You guys.
Single tear. I'm just kidding.
Single.
the July.
Moving on. We're good.
See. Yes.